Okay, hello, Greek Philippians class. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you have already translated Philippians 2 verses 1 and 2 on your own. Here is my translation. If you look at the a tis, we have this several times. You have a tis here, you have a ti here, a tis here, a tis. Notice what's going on with the accents. You probably know this by now, but tis is the indefinite pronoun. So we have the this is feminine because it goes with paraklesis. This is a sissy noun; it's feminine. No offense to those who might stumble across this. Ti is neuter because parathumion is neuter, and then we go back to tis, feminine, because koinonia is feminine. Here, tis is actually, that's strange, because I would have thought that splunkna was a neuter plural alpha. Anyway, for whatever reason, tis is there. So we have these indefinite pronouns that are matching the words they go with. Now, a is the word if. You can see it here without the accent. And it's the conditional conjunction. And so you had basically two enclitics next to each other, two freeloaders that didn't want to take the accent. And so when you have two enclitics next to each other, the first one is forced to take the accent. So that's why we have an accent on the A in each of these cases, even though normally A is an enclitic that wouldn't have an accent. A is takes an indicative. Remember, there are two words for if. This is the A, the if with that it assumes the truth of the condition. It's basically a first-class condition. A with the indicative. Although there is no indicative here, it's assumed. The is in brackets. It's not there literally, but it's there. Okay. Un is a procrastinating conjunction. We call it a good grief. I'm having problems because it's 10 o'clock at night. What is that? It's not it is a procrastinator, but we call it a good grief, my brain. Never mind. You're thinking it right, but basically, so un is translated first, even though it appears third in the sequence. So therefore, we have this is probably the beginning of it's the beginning of a new chapter. So therefore, if some encouragement in Christ there is not there, we have to come up with. If there is some encouragement in Christ, if some parathumion, I don't really know parathumion, but I know it's a good thing. If there's some encouragement, something like that. Consolation, let's go with consolation. If there's some consolation, agapes, of love. If some fellowship of spirit, pneumatos is a ma noun, unlike my ma. The ma nouns are all neuter. This is genitive, right? Arkonantas, antianta. Arkonantas, it's genitive singular. Fellowship of spirit. If some fellowship of spirit there is, if some splunkna, if some bowels, if some guts, if some longing and mercies, oiktimoi. How does Blue Letter Bible translate it? Some affection. It's really bowels. It's plural too, and compassion. Very, very strange. It's very strange because these are both plural, and yet tis is singular. Who knew? If some, okay. By the way, you see at the bottom is the Textus Receptus. I have the RSV queued up here. And if you look, let me look. If some fellowship of spirit, okay. Actually, interestingly, the Textus Receptus has tina, which is what it should be. So, interesting. Hey, we have a manuscript issue here. Textual criticism. So, the most modern translations, represented by the RSV here, By the way, the Greek, under any version other than the King James or New King James, the Greek here is the Greek behind the New American Standard Bible, I believe. Remember, I was puzzled by this because it seems grammatically incorrect. And so you pick the more difficult reading. Which is more likely? That some copyist would have corrected something that looked like a grammatical mistake, or that some copyist would have intentionally messed it up? So apparently those who decided on the Greek text behind the New American Standard Bible decided that it was more likely that Paul had a grammatical infelicity that the later manuscripts changed, corrected, than that Paul had it correct and then changed it. That's what I'm guessing happened here. Of course, I don't think when we talk about grammatical style, that's not something that constitutes an error as far as inerrancy is concerned. After all, who invented grammar? There's no inspired grammar, so to speak. Okay, well, this has been me making a very simple verse very drawn out. Okay, moving right along to verse 2. So let's go ahead and look at verse 2. Plerosate mu. Why are there two accents on plerosate? Well, it's because mu is a freeloader. Mu is another enclitic that doesn't have an accent, and so it forces the plerosate to pick up an accent on the end to make up for that. Plerosate. Did you parse it? I hope you did. Pause the tape if you haven't parsed it yet. Okay, now that you've parsed it, if you start at the end and move back, te is a second person plural, right? I know te. It's a second person plural ending, usually active, almost always active, although there are exceptions. Okay, so I've got second person plural active tentatively. Sigma alpha. I bet this is an aorist. It is. It's an aorist active second person plural. But what mood is it? Well, here's where, again, pause it. Think about it. If I'm asking you what mood it is, it probably is something you didn't think was obvious. Okay, pause the tape. Okay, did you come up with the right answer? So there's no augment on it, so it's not indicative. If it were indicative, eplerosate, you fulfilled. If it was indicative, it would have an augment. So why doesn't it have an augment? How can you have an aorist without an augment? Well, obviously it must not be in the indicative mood. What are the options? Well, it's not subjunctive because the connecting vowel is not fried. It's not optative because it doesn't have an oi or an a or an I or something like that we haven't even memorized. It's actually imperative. The second person plural aorist imperative and the second person plural present imperative, the only things different between them is the augment. Indicative and imperative. So this is an imperative. Fulfill! It's command. Y'all fulfill! What are we fulfilling? We are fulfilling the joy, the accusative of direct object. Fulfill the joy of me. Fulfill my joy. With the result that, I think this is probably result, a hina leading to a result clause. Fulfill my joy in order that, I don't think it's a result. And so I'm expecting a subjunctive of result somewhere. Subjunctive. Yay, subjunctive. Phronete is a subjunctive. How do I know? Well, because the connecting vowel is fried. So the phronete goes with the hina. So te, again, second person plural, usually active. Now, this eta here, I don't have a whiteboard, but the word is phroneo. It is a contract verb. And so I should be a little scared by the fact that this is a contract verb. Is it a subjunctive eta, or is it a indicative eta that looks like a subjunctive eta? Well, it is a subjunctive eta. I mean, the hina, you need one, so that it fits the bill. But here's the thing. I don't have a whiteboard here, but the eta of the ending and the e of phroneo, when they crash into each other, an epsilon and an epsilon crash to form an epsilon iota. So if it was an indicative, it would be phronete with an epsilon iota. And so the fact that it's an eta actually does indicate here that it's subjunctive. Okay, so in order that you might think ta auta, When autos has the article on it, it means same. Sometimes I call that the identical pronoun, although it's really autos. It's not really a different pronoun, I guess. But I know there are some people who call it the identical pronoun when it means same, and it means same when it has the article on it. And this happens a lot in this stretch of Philippians, by the way. David Ward preached on this stretch of Philippians, at least the last few verses of chapter 1 in chapel. There are lots of the sames in this section of Philippians. So, fulfill my joy with the result that you think the same thing, neuter, right? This is neuter. Think the same thing, the same love having, okay? Have you noticed that Paul seems to do this a lot in Philippians so far, where he'll put the participle at the end of the stretch of words that go with it? So it's the same love having. We would much rather him have said having the same love, but this is how he does it. Again, autos with the article on it means same. It's identical. It's not actually being used as a pronoun here. It's being used as an adjective. It's the same love. It's a good old attributive adjective construction there. Having the same love. I think that's telling, we might call the ekontes a modal participle, because it's telling us how we think the same way. We think the same way as we have the same love. Is that right? We can debate that. Maybe it's just a further expansion and doesn't have any extra meaning. But anyway, ekontes, did you notice that my aunt is an active participle? So this is a straight old ek. If the stem is the present stem, nothing added to it, nothing taken away. So it's a present active participle. Arkon anta, santi anta, antes, it's nominative plural, masculine. So we have a present active participle, nominative masculine plural from echo. So having the same love. So fulfill my joy with the result that you think the same, having the same love, sumsukoi. I like this word. Like-souled. Being like-souled. Having the same soul, or similar soul at least. How do we translate like-souled? Because we don't have a word like that in English. They go with united in spirit. Okay, well, give them honorable mention for that. Having a common soul. I like that. Having a common soul. So we maybe in our translation put commas. With the result that you think the same, comma, having the same love, comma, of similar soul, comma, and then these three words go together. Thinking the one. So phronuntes is my aunt is an active participle. It's phroneo, it's the present stem, so it's a present active participle. S is nominative masculine plural. So again, thinking. These are all telling what does it mean to think the same thing. We think the same thing, or what are maybe these are circumstantial participles. They're telling us kind of the stuff that goes along with fulfilling his joy. So we think the same, we have the same love, we are of like soul, and we think the one. Hen, of course, it's not the preposition en. Post-positive, that's what it was, post-positive, where it doesn't come where it's supposed to. Kind of like this part of the lecture belonged earlier in the lecture, so a post-positive like un doesn't come where it's supposed to. It comes a few words late. Whew. Okay, so hen is not the word en, it's not the word in. For one thing, it has a rough breathing mark, and for another, it has an accent. En, as a preposition, is a proclitic. It comes before. Enclitic, stands on its own, but a proclitic comes before. And a preposition comes before. So this is not en. This is hen, which is the neuter form of the word one. So thinking the one. Okay, this has been Philippians 1, verses 1 and 2. Philippians 2, verses 1 and 2. And hopefully you translate it. And I'm going to go to bed now. Thank you.